Marvel's Tom Holland's Spider-Man is good. With the new trailer dropping and giving Spider-Man fans everything they've been begging for after ragging on the MCU Spider-Man for a decade, it's reignited what annoys me most with the Spider-Man fandom and Raimi fans in general. The short version, they hate change. They want the same stories repeated endlessly, and at that point, why not just watch the same movies over and over? And many of these people do. When a fandom pressures a studio into changing the trajectory of a character's arc and role within an entire cinematic universe just so that they can get their preferred version instead of just accepting the story the filmmakers wanted to tell, that's whenever I start seeing a real problem. The Iron Boy Jr. insult has always just been stupid to me. I'm not arguing Raimi's films aren't well written or good Spider-Man movies. They are. But I can also respect, appreciate, and accept that different creatives can do different things with Spider-Man. That's fine. I generally don't like Miles Morales for reasons I explained in that video months ago, but I can still accept when a new version of Miles Morales tries to tell a story worth telling. Raimi fans, though, seem to want the same movie remade forever. Spider-Man 2 is great, but we need to be able to move past it because it's not the only way to tell a Spider-Man story. These people unironically complained that Peter wasn't told with great power comes great responsibility, even though Uncle Ben never actually said that line. It was Stan Lee directly talking to the reader, and Tony Stark's "if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it" is functionally the same message, delivered in a way that makes sense for this world that Peter grew up in. And honestly, I kind of think that it's a little bit better, albeit still generic. And that's where you have to start if you want to address the Iron Boy Jr. criticism. This is not a standalone comic issue or isolated movie. The MCU existed before Peter was even old enough to be Spider-Man. The MCU was built around Iron Man. Tony Stark funds the Avengers, creates their gear, pays for their living, and runs a private spy network monitoring Earth for threats and potential heroes. This has been consistent across the entire franchise. So why is it bad that Peter is taken under Tony's wing, funded by him, like everybody else, and taught how to be a hero in Homecoming? It makes perfect sense within the context of the world. And Tony isn't even actively trying to tell him what to do. In fact, he doesn't really want to get involved in him because of the characterization that Tony has had. He doesn't think he can be a parent in some kind of way. He thinks Peter functionally can just teach himself, which is what he has been doing, until he realizes that Peter can't be trusted with the suit because he doesn't think he deserves it, which is where the arc begins. Raimi had the privilege of ignoring questions like, in a world where every hero is funded by Tony Stark and monitored because of how dangerous they can be, how would Tony not interact with Spider-Man or Daredevil? Marvel basically acted like Daredevil didn't exist when making his show, which bit them in the ass later when they tried to connect it to the MCU. The MCU introduced Spider-Man in a way that actually fits the universe. Tony Stark taking Peter under his wing is logical, and Homecoming literally has Peter go through an arc where he breaks out of Tony's rules and earns the mantle for himself. How is that any different from any other Spider-Man story where Peter learns that if you can do something, you should do something? It isn't. It's just not Raimi's version, and that's apparently a crime to these people. In a world where every hero gets their gear from Iron Man or Wakanda, why is it suddenly essential that Spider-Man's costume be handmade? The story explicitly explores why that doesn't matter. The ideals behind the costume matter, not the fabric or gadgets. That's the entire theme of the movie and of Spider-Man as a character. Peter literally does the final battle without the suit, proving the point, and earns it back. There is no way that you could have watched this movie, saw the final act, and still shit on Peter for having his suit made by Iron Man, because the film explicitly explains and expresses why the suit doesn't fucking matter, and yet people still complained about the fact that he didn't hand make his suit. Like, dude, why is it bad that Iron Man made his suit? This version of Peter is young, grew up watching heroes save Earth from alien invasions, and sees an Avenger as noble and responsible. Of course he'd accept help from the most renowned hero alive, and because of his age, he can't realistically make a suit that looks professional in a world where hero activity is monitored. Tony tracks him down in Civil War to discuss joining the Avengers. All of this makes sense for the character regardless of what comic issue people think fits Spider-Man more. How is any of this different from Peter idolizing the Fantastic Four and asking them for a job in his first issue? The criticisms for the MCU Spider-Man essentially just boil down to, it's not Raimi, therefore it's wrong. People even wanted organic webs for this fucking guy. Something only Raimi did, something that makes no sense within the ethos of Spider-Man, and spammed this idea on Twitter until Marvel forced it into the new movie. It is so obviously not the original plan that it feels insulting Marvel wasn't confident enough to stick to their own story that they set up in Homecoming and Far From Home. They bent the arc of this character so unnaturally, even though they were setting up the fact that he was going to lead the MCU just to appease these people that don't even care that they made these changes. Using nostalgia to make the third movie, one that never got to be its own film, is even more insulting. It gave these people exactly what they wanted, and now this Spider-Man can never be his own Spider-Man because Marvel won't commit to what they started in Homecoming and Far From Home. I'll admit, Far From Home doesn't let Spider-Man be Spider-Man, but that's the point. He doesn't know if he wants to pick up Iron Man's mantle or stay a neighborhood hero. It builds directly off of Homecoming. The film shows why the world needs Spider-Man and why Tony trusted only him to take over whenever we realize that in a world that's shattered and broken in chaos due to what happened in the previous movie in the MCU, you need organic heroes that just make sense, which is what Iron Man saw in Peter and what we see in the character as well. Except, no, not really actually. Go fuck yourself. Spider-Man can never evolve. He must continue to conform to nostalgia-driven stories that don't make sense for this version of the character. Yes, Nick Fury's Skrull twist is stupid, but clowning the MCU, Spider-Man, because he exists in a lived-in universe with consistent morals and themes is even dumber. It makes less sense for heroes to have factory-level suits without explaining that Tony Stark funds them. It is a simple explanation that doesn't need to be delved in any deeper and literally is just there so people can stop fucking bitching, and yet they still continue to complain. I don't know why people hated this version so much that they influenced Marvel into making the story worse. Is it really important who says the responsibility line? Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Tony. There's no functional difference as long as the character learns the themes. Who cares how? They complained that the movies weren't going to use this line at all, even though Tony Stark already delivered the equivalent message in Uncle Ben's lesson is implied because he was willing to go against Iron Man's rules in the movie because of what Uncle Ben probably said to him when he died. It's all implied. Just because these people can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, you know, it's not spoon-fed to me, so I can't even use my brain to even come to logical conclusions that the film wants you to. We can watch the exact final moments of the film specifically tell us that the suit doesn't matter, but we'll still complain about the suit because we just don't care. Maybe they just didn't watch the movie, but they complained Peter wasn't broke enough, even though Homecoming subtly shows that they are, and in a universe funded by billionaires, why would Spider-Man be the exception to the rule of every single hero being funded by Iron Man? It doesn't make any sense. These films have subtleties that get ignored because fans can't point at them and say, see, that's exactly like Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, Spider-Verse, Spectacular Spider-Man, issue 2745. Spider-Man fans just need to grow up, dude. I'm so sick and tired of this fucking fandom. These movies were fine until they started changing things for no reason. When films start being written by Reddit, like Rise of Skywalker, the writing suffers because filmmakers aren't making something that they care about. Ned obviously wasn't supposed to be a magic user in this verse. They literally wrote that into No Way Home to escape a corner they wrote themselves into because they didn't care anymore. It was always going to be a money printer film because fans wanted nostalgia. They barely even made it make sense and people ate it up, even though No Way Home makes absolutely no sense under any critical thought because it doesn't follow any of the rules established about how dimensional shit works in the MCU. Timelines, universes, they're basically the fucking same in this cinematic universe, and that doesn't make any sense. Now we're getting the same characters back exactly what they were in Homecoming in this new movie. It's just boring. They reset Spider-Man's arc because fans couldn't stop complaining, and now we have to watch more slop where they drag Hulk out of retirement or bring back a Nerf Punisher. The MCU is eating itself because these people are children who just cannot grow and need to be forced into liking good media by just not listening to any of their criticisms. The MCU is eating itself alive trying to appease people who just fundamentally don't know what they want. They want nostalgia, but they also want novelty. They want the old characters, but they also want new characters that make sense within the context of the world. They want grounded stories, but they also want multiverse spectacle. They want everything and nothing at the same time, which is partially why Marvel can't actually grow or tell a coherent story because the fans just don't know what they want, and Marvel is trying to listen to them rather than just making something that is good and sticking with it. So Marvel just keeps resurrecting characters. They keep dragging heroes out of retirement. They keep bringing back versions of characters they were already nerfed or mishandled. They keep chasing applause instead of telling stories, and Spider-Man is the clearest example of that collapse and the beginning of it because these fans only got louder the more that the MCU went on. He was supposed to be the future of the MCU. He was supposed to be the emotional anchor of the next generation of heroes. Instead, he's been reset to square one because people couldn't stop bitching. The MCU did not fail Spider-Man. Spider-Man fans did.